This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. Respectonomics is bringing you this edition of The Living Journey. And The Living Journey is a standalone platform, and it is designed to help us to define our journeys in life and to think about where we are and where we are trying to get to. And if we're trying to get somewhere, we need to be prepared. We need to have the tools and the transportation to get there. And that's the job of the living journey through Respectonomics. My name is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I am your voice of Respectonomics. I'm your year of Respectonomics. I'm also available to be giving workshops, presentations, speeches, and the like, and may be contacted at jeremy@respectonomics.com. jeremy@respectonomics.com. And even if you don't want to or do not feel inclined to invite me to a workshop, for example, I do hope that you will see this as an opportunity to be back with your comments and your insights into what we're trying to do. We've already established the living journey is based on a prism, a formula, if you like, of light, that light is divided out. The light belongs to the individual turns on the light, and the prism that divides that light out is Respectonomics. That's my job. And we talk about how the light is divided in this prism. It goes through Roygbiv. That's that expression that explains the different colors. We went through the R, which is the R that stands for respect. We're now dealing with the letter O, which stands for orange. But in actual fact, in our light of life, we're using it to describe openness. And openness is the first part of understanding our humanity. And as we are open, how we can open ourselves to other people and how other people can be open to us. Let's divide this into several parts because the openness of the human being is not a one-line subject. One thing I want to emphasize, it may surprise you this, I am doing this conversation, this discussion with you. This is being done without notes and without a text, without a formula. It's because openness is something that is dear to all of our hearts. We hear that expression, we wish that people would be open-minded. And when it is said of ourselves to be open-minded, we have this conflict that exists between hearing a new piece of information and a new idea, and at the same time, the pride and conviction we have in our existing views. So there is a conflict going between on being open and shut. It's not an easy one. There's no one-line answer. But if we're going to talk about the openness that we have towards another human being and the openness that exists to ourselves, one thing that comes to mind first of all is, as much as we would like other people to be open to us, the starting gate is to make sure that we are open to other people. Put it another way, we are the initiators of a relationship. Now, this is where it gets complicated, because if you look at the word relationship, most of us think of it as two people, three people, multitudes of people that can get on and relate to one another. And there's good truth to that. But there's another part to this. I don't want to bore you with classical Latin, but here's something rather extraordinary. The word relationship is made up of two words in Latin, the re, which means backwards and forwards, but the relationship part of it is part of an irregular verb. Now that has two interesting segues to it. The first is relationships are irregular. You can't actually define them and say this is how they work. The second part is this. The word relationship, the latio part of it, is from the Latin ferro, which is the beginning of this irregular verb, which means I bear. Then you say, I have borne. This is extraordinary, and it's called tuli. But here's the main point. I have been carried, I have been born, is latum. or latus, I have been born and what I have been carried. And a relationship, therefore, foundationally exists on our willingness to be carried by another individual. It needs a certain degree of acquiescence. It may involve a certain degree of even humility, but it allows us to understand that the footing of the relationship is our ability to be carried by someone else. Whether you're carried by your children, whether you're carried by your spouse, carried by your fellow workers, carried by your fellow politician, whomever it is, that relationship, the core of it is to be carried by somebody else. Now, if we're going to have this openness that creates these relationships, we need to be able to listen and to hear other people's opinions and to ingest them. Very difficult to do. We talk about being open-minded as though it's a sort of everybody else should do it, but I don't really have to do it. And the answer is we need to find mirrors in our lives. That's why turning on the light is so important. You turn the light on because when you turn the light on, which is an individual decision to break down the darkness within one's own life, when you turn the light on, that's when the mirror can work the best. And so we are making the agreement that when we turn the light on, we will expose ourselves. We will, in fact, find people saying to us, we wish you did it this way or that way, or we counsel you to do it this way or that way, or that rather cruel question, why would you be bothering to do that? But whatever the question is, the nature of the consultation is, the advice and so on, recognizing that we can hold a mirror up to others is part that they can respond and saying, this is what you look like, Jeremy, or you look like Francis, or you look like Sally, or whoever you might be. This is the benefit of turning the light on and allowing someone else to be the mirror so that we can see ourselves in that mirror through the intervention, the intercession of another individual. Therefore, we've turned the light on. We're going to assume the basis of the relationship. We're going to allow ourselves to be carried by that opinion of another individual. That does not mean to say that we have to follow that other piece of advice, but it does mean that we want to take it and consider it and reflect on it. What a great idea to reflect on light. That if we've turned on the light, we are agreeing to ourselves that we will reflect on and have the capacity to reflect on the advice and the ideas of other people. Now, that all said, I want to take you now into another channel or another place altogether. The human being is made up of three parts. Sometimes we call ourselves triads, sometimes we call ourselves triunal, sometimes we call ourselves tripartite, but the threesome, the triangular definition of the human being is the body, the physicality of the body, the mind, which does the processing, and the soul, which is that inner being, that inner spirit that is really the jewel of our lives. It is the one that is most clearly defined in one sense, defined by you, not defined by me, but each and every person. Just as we often say in life, I know when I see something, but I can't define it. Everybody will say the same about their soul. We can't define it necessarily, but we know it exists, and we know it's within us. Now, the whole point of the body, mind, and spirit is also that in defining this triangular nature of the human being, we also agree that if one of those is exited from the equation, if we operate without a body, without a mind, or without a soul, without one of those, the rest of the humanity doesn't function effectively. And this is really the key point, that if we're going to be open, we need to be able to say to ourselves, my body is open, my mind is open, and my soul is open, my spirit is open. Use whatever definitions you like, but you know your own definition. And it isn't my job to define that definition to you. It is for you to be aware of these three parts. It is also fair to say that when these three parts are working well together, we have what's called a triumvirate. And that is the enormous power, the enormous compulsion, the enormous advancement that comes when these three are combined. I will make a statement that is probably anecdotal, it is probably by observation, but I think a lot of people today are so caught up in the necessities of living, they are overwhelmed by the calls on their lives. How many people say, gosh, this month has already gone, it didn't even start. We have this feeling that the world is slipping us all by. And as we find ourselves in this world of being, loosely speaking, overwhelmed, we also find ourselves unable to consider the metrics of the body and the mind and the soul. So in a sense, this is, I would hesitate to call it a wake-up call as much as let's take off the camouflage and look at humanity for what it is, the body, the mind, and the soul. And if we're going to be dealing with the openness of the human being, it makes sense that we should be open to the dynamics of each of these. If you look at your body, everybody knows that the body needs to be sustained, the body needs to be exercised, the body needs to breathe. And I don't think this is the time or place for us to focus on what the body needs. There's numerous places where you can find out the benefits of walking, the benefits of deep breathing, the benefits of eating carefully and properly, and so on. The mind is also very similar to the body. It needs to be exercised. It needs education. It needs to be able to write. It needs to be able to think. It needs to be able to speak. It needs to have an alter ego. The alter ego may be another person, it might be music, but it needs a way in which it can reflect again, but it can be in apposition, not opposition, apposition to another human being. The mind thrives. Have you noticed when you're with another person and you're talking about a subject that could be really rather mundane, but how exciting it becomes as you exchange ideas. It becomes accretive and it builds up. And then there's this issue of the soul, because when the soul is allowed to be free, it's like a reservoir. And when we open up the reservoir, as you would, because you don't look at a reservoir and close it up, the whole principle of a reservoir is to open it up to let the water in. And we're going to let in the light into our souls, and we can each one of us define what is the light that comes into our soul. And just like you decide what's good for your body and your mind, you can hear counsel of many kinds and shapes, but whatever that counsel is, you decide and I decide what is the feedstock for my soul. Because when I open, there's the word again, when I open my soul, that is when I open it up to all of the possibilities of how it can be fed. Unfed, it is starved. Starved, it does not allow the body and the mind to function correctly. If the soul is fed and the soul is open to this new feeding, it will prosper. Then we find, as with everything in life, we measure things. We love to measure things. We say, took half an hour to get somewhere. Does it really matter? No, but we like to measure things. And we can start measuring the effectiveness, the effectuality of what happens when we open our souls and allow it to be fed. And when we do that, when we create this openness of body, mind, and soul, we then create another possibility. I'm going to use the word the universe. The universe is an easy, almost apologetic way of defining any feedstock that is available for the soul. And we're just going to call it the universe and let everybody determine for themselves what is the nature of the universe, the component of the universe, the component of accessibility that allows that soul, your soul, to be fed. So, with that in mind, the universe is unbelievable. It's extraordinary. How many times have we looked up at the stars, looked up at the moon, looked up at the sun, listened to the ruminations of SpaceX, and so on, and looked up and recognized the incredible expansiveness of the constellations, of the galaxies, and recognized that is the universe. And it is the universe that is accessible to us. And when our soul is open, then the universe starts delivering. And what does the universe start delivering? It starts delivering the tools and the opportunities and the openings itself for us to explore our own inner strengths and inner potential, our inner possibilities. We are a crusading crowd of people, humanity. We love to explore. Who hasn't ever seen the sign that says, don't go past this door? And what's the first thing you do? To go past this door. We love to explore. We love to know what's behind that tree. We love to know what's sitting behind a bench. We're always in the business of exploring. We do it naturally. And if I were to put one card on the table, when we find that we're not exploring, that we're not in this adventure, we need to take a very serious look at the openness of body, mind, and spirit in our personal lives. But if we have this open soul, if we agree that the universe is then in a position to deliver, if the universe will then say, here are the keys to these hidden strengths, maybe not even hidden, maybe they're strengths and capacities, skills, talents, enjoyments, pleasures that we have moved away, that we have covered in some kind of sackcloth and said, no, we don't need to see that any longer, and it's been put away. How many times have you been emptying out a drawer or something in your kitchen or your desk and found things that you said, my, I'd forgotten about that? Well, we do that in our own lives. My, I forgot about that skill. I forgot about that talent. I forgot that somebody had taught me something. And you go back into the recesses of your mind and you say, yes, I knew that. So when we find that we have those openings available, when the key comes in, because the universe is brilliant at providing us with the keys to open the doors. Quite often we do not know what is behind the door. I am not talking about a door that has signs of skulls and crossbows on it or whatever, and where you say, do not go in here. I'm not talking about that. I am talking about those wonderful qualities that we all have, and that when we are provided with keys, we are in a position to open those doors and to let those strengths come out. And as we allow those strengths to come out, we turn ourselves from being ordinary into extraordinary. Every human being is extraordinary. Think about your own family, your own friends and colleagues. Each one of them is extraordinary. You only have to look at their thumb and recognize their thumbprint is different from yours. Everybody is different, everybody is unique, everybody is exclusive, and everybody has these extraordinary capacities to be something extraordinary. But you cannot be extraordinary if the door isn't open. And if you haven't opened the door, and if I haven't opened the door, then there will be no opportunity for these strengths to come out. But we need the key. We must have a key to open the door. Sometimes we can't even see what's on the door key, on the key itself. We don't know what the label is. Sometimes the door itself doesn't even have a sign on it. So there's a certain degree of experimentation. But if the universe, in all of its capacity, offers you a key and places it in your hand, that you can then open up these opportunities within your own life and your own capacities, that is a miracle of life. It's a miracle of life to which we are all accessible. It's available to each and every one of us. It's also aspirational. Who doesn't want to see the best part of their lives rising to the surface like cream? Of course we want to rise to the top. And we want to do it in a way that it creates legacy, it creates satisfaction, it creates pride, and it's that sense that at the end of the day we can say to ourselves, yep, I gave it a fair go. It's all based on openness, opening the body, opening the mind, and opening the soul, and allowing the key of the universe to be able to be put in our hand and to open ourselves up to these incredible talents. It was over the Independence Day celebrations. I heard this a remarkable speaker. His name is Ali Velshi. Some of you may know him. And he was in Philadelphia, the starting gate of the American independence. And he was talking about some of the great achievements. But he did point out one thing. And he brought out of his pocket a pair of some keys and said, everybody has keys. Yes, we all do. Some do your front door, some do your car, sometimes do your desk. But we also have keys that we can use to unlock these treasures that are within each and every one of us. The example he gave was the young man in Czechoslovakia, in Prague, who brought the keys out of his pocket and started shaking them. And then everybody in this crowd of 100 or 200,000 took keys out of their pocket and started shaking them. Let us be one of those people that shakes the keys. We shake the keys, not the ones that are in our pocket, but the keys that are in our soul, the keys that are in our hearts, the keys that unlock these incredible opportunities, these majestic strengths that lie within each and every one of us. If we're on the journey of life, we want to be complete. We want to be able to bring the full resources within ourselves. We want to be able to look at the destinations, the aspirations, the objects of our navigation. We want to look at that journey and say, this is a journey for which I have been prepared. It's the journey I want to be on. So I'm going to conclude with one question. Have you used your keys today?